Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. We have one of my favorite colleagues, Jonathan Rothschild from Ecological. And Jonathan, we have all of our protocols have got many of the ecological products custom labeled so that we can integrate them into our protocols. And there's so many important areas that need to be discussed in terms of the kind of nutraceuticals that we can apply to many different health conditions. I want to start off with some of the more important ones right off the top, and I'll try to do them sort of semi-alphabetically. One of the first I recommend that people use for mitochondrial and reversing the aging process is ALC 1000 or acetylcarnitine. Can you tell us a little bit about the background of ALC, and then it's paired up, of course, with D-ribose, which raises ATP levels. The combination of ALC 1000 and D-ribose are important for reversing not only heart failure, but brain dysfunction, mitochondrial dysfunction. It's amazing. You can take older animals, for example, and you give them ALC 1000 and D-ribose, and literally, not days or weeks later, but literally minutes later, they start to reverse and have normal behavior of younger animals. So it's pretty remarkable, isn't it?
Well, there are different forms of carnitine that target different organ systems. And the ALC 1000, which is used in an economical powder form, is targeted to the brain. So, when we talk about mitochondrial aging, the brain is one of the first organ systems that is affected. That's one reason why we have memory loss. And I'm not talking about Alzheimer's or dementia, but subclinical conditions when you just can't remember a name or a place and you struggle for it. And now that we use the internet so much, we're using that as a crutch, and that's not good. We need supplements that improve the firing rate of neurons so that we can remember things. And the supplements are the addition to it that we need.
Now, what's the difference in terms of its biological effects, the ALC 1000 or acetylcarnitine, and the D-ribose, which works directly to convert to ATP?
Well, the D-ribose is used as a substrate for energy metabolism, and the carnitine shuttles fatty acids across the mitochondrial membrane, and in the case of acetylcarnitine, ALC 1000, it actually can help promote precursor pools of the nutrients that the brain requires. And because it is crossing on that level, some of it is actually going across the blood-brain barrier.
The other carnitine is what we call our VascuCare, which is a propionyl L-carnitine both for smooth muscle, skeletal muscle, and cardiac muscle, and the muscles in your blood vessel walls, the smooth muscle. And it's one of the most important, what I call energetic formulas out there, is the VascuCare, along with CoQ10 and CoQ10 ubiquinol. Can you tell us a little bit about propionyl L-carnitine? Because we had one, it was a glycinated form, but we've upgraded that now to just a straight propionyl L-carnitine.
It's actually the fourth generation carnitine that it was developed in Italy, and the Italian soccer team has been taking these supplements. It helps them with their endurance and smooth muscle as well as skeletal muscle, where you were required to use nutrients for energy metabolism. And the mitochondria are like the spark plugs in an engine. And without that, you cannot get the firing rate going in the cells themselves. So the propionyl carnitine they've actually used in intermittent claudication and ischemic heart disease, where people can't walk more than 10 steps. And can you imagine what it does with a healthy person and makes them better? But this is not doping for athletes. This is using a physiologic agent that the body recognizes and is in the Krebs cycle itself.
Right. In fact, you can't measure it. You can't say that someone's doped, like do a blood sample and say, oh, you're taking XYZ illegal substance. There's no way of measuring this in someone's body and saying that they're doping. So if you're a power lifter, if you're a runner, if you play a contact sport, and you take VascuCare along with CoQ10 and D-ribose, you're going to amplify your performance dramatically. That's important. And if you're an older person that's got weak muscles and you can't get out of your chair, or you've got congestive heart failure, or you've got poor circulation, as I said before, hypertension is the cardiac response to perceived decreased perfusion. So when your body and your cardiac system perceives decreased perfusion, the driving pressure of your heart pushing against a apparent resistance, the blood vessels don't resist. They're actually supposed to be the secondary peristaltic wave that moves the blood around your body. Your heart actually doesn't pump the blood around your body, it's your blood vessels. The heart's only the primary wave, and the secondary wave, which is actually more important, is actually the contractile peristaltic waves of your arteries, your arterioles, the capillary bed, which is related to nitric oxide, the venules and the veins that return the blood to your heart. Your heart doesn't pump blood back to the heart. It's pumped back to the heart by the blood vessels. Pretty amazing, eh?
Yeah, and I think it's very good that you're incorporating other nutrients in your protocol, such as CoQ and D-ribose, and our hearts and circulatory system don't function as efficiently as we age. It's like a new car. I hate to use too many automobile analogies, but and oversimplify it. But in some ways, the connection is really there. You know how a car runs after a while. Our bodies are set up for eventual obsolescence, and we want to have them running optimally as long as possible. And these nutrients that you put together with the protocol mark so many different pathways that are limited in our biochemical system.
The other things we can add, of course, are mitocarnitine, and it's the mitochondrial catalyst, that is, mitochondrial catalyst and uridine. Can you tell us a little bit about these two? Because we're trying to amplify mitochondrial function. I tell people your age and live as well as your mitochondria. And you get your mitochondria from your mother. I tell the people the queen of the cell is the mitochondria. The queen of the mitochondria is its T3, and the queen of the T3 is the monoatomic iodine. It's our Nutridyne. And if you use our Nutridyne and mitothyroid, you take mitochondrial catalyst and uridine along with what we've already mentioned, you're going to amplify mitochondrial function, and you're going to extend not only life but improve performance of every organ in your body.
So there are different forms of carnitine. All have different functions, and what you're referring to with the mitochondrial catalysts are including a number of cyclic nucleotides, which is a whole class of nutrients that have been ignored by physicians and the supplement industry itself. And they're very important. For example, cytidine choline is useful, and there are studies from this, MIT, using that in conjunction with DHA for Alzheimer's, for memory defects due to cerebral arteriosclerosis. There are other cyclic nucleotides in the mitochondrial catalysts. There's a uridine, and then there's the uridine monophosphate, and then the acetyluridine. And earlier when you were talking about the ALC 1000, that's an acetylated form, and 15% of the population has a weak acetylating gene. For instance, you can't take an amino acid and absorb it unless you have that gene that's coded for acetylation. So if it's pre-acetylated, it will be useful. And that's a large percentage of the population, and we don't even know subclinically if there's even a much higher percentage.
Well, in premature babies, they have a decrease in acetylation. And I remember 20 years ago, my daughter was in the post-operative after second heart surgery, and I talked to the master's level dietitian, and they had in their intensive care nursery babies, and they were giving just a regular carnitine, which wasn't working. And I recommended they switch to the acetylated form, which is what we had back then. We didn't have the propionyl carnitine. And she reported the next day that every single child that received it that was in the intensive care nursery in heart failure, as a premature baby, actually was pulled out of heart failure immediately.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's a metabolic disorder. And when we look at hypertension, it's a metabolic disorder of the peristaltic metabolic support of the mitochondria in your artery walls and your veins. And when we restore the metabolism to normal, the blood pressure drops to normal as well. That's why our Cardiovite and all these other things are cardiovascular. And the nutraceuticals we just mentioned are necessary for heart function.
Gold. It's like nothing else on earth. And
welcome back. And one of my other favorite forms of carnitine is IBS Care. It's a long-acting carnitine that's used to be released in a tablet so that it can normalize peristaltic movement of the myenteric plexus of your bowel. So one of our treatments for irritable bowel syndrome, diverticulosis, and some forms of colitis is to use the IBS carers to normalize the motor activity of the bowel wall. And it's a nice slow release form of carnitine release. So that works really well. The range of nutraceuticals you've developed are pretty remarkable. Another one is magnesium taurate. And, of course, we have our magnesium glycinate malate and our brain mag, which is magnesium L-threonate. Magnesium taurate, and, of course, you have also the spilks, which is the Yiddish for pins and needles, which is calcium magnesium taurate. That's a muscle relaxant, anxiolytic. Tell us about magnesium taurate and the spilkies, the calcium magnesium taurate, how these work.
Well, taurine is an amino acid, and it has a neuroinhibitory effect. That means it calms the nerves down. As an example, there are 5 textbooks on the use of taurine in epilepsy and other seizure disorders. And it's a physiologic agent, and different amino acids have specific effects on the brain. For example, aspartame, which Pepsi has just removed from their soft drinks, has aspartic acid, glutamic acid, bound by some formaldehyde binder, and those are neuroexcitatory, so they can contribute to migraine. And, there is a function for them as well, but when you're taking it in high concentrated amounts, it's not necessarily healthy, especially for people who drink large quantities of it or have it as artificial sweeteners. Just because they're amino acids doesn't mean they're innocuous. On the
and actually that tripeptide will convert spontaneously to diketopiperazine, which is actually a component of jet fuel, and was very neuro and genotoxic, as well as methyl alcohol and formaldehyde. So it's not just phenylalanine that's bad for phenylketonuria, but it's actually a spontaneous neurotoxin, genotoxin, and methyl alcohol, which is very dangerous for mitochondria, nerves, and brain, so it can make you blind. Which, of course, they knew from methyl alcohol when they were having stills. The first part of the alcohol coming off the still was always the dangerous part that was the methanol, because it's more volatile than the regular alcohols. But
taurine is neuroinhibitory. It's more of a calming agent. So we bind them to different salts. There's a calcium taurate and a magnesium taurate that is in the spilkus. Spilkus is Yiddish for sitting on pins and needles. People are anxious and can't sit still. And the straight magnesium taurate, which we have in different dosage forms, is useful for as a physiologic calcium channel blocker. So you can actually wean patients off of verapamil, cardizem, and they use it for different arrhythmias. So it works on smooth muscle as well as helpful in leg cramps and restless leg syndrome, which has recently been recognized as its own DRG code. And so it's a calming agent. And in the stress in our lives, whether we're in a traffic jam or having spousal issues, and we need to calm down, it's rapid acting. It's so essential as a macro mineral. Magnesium is depleted from the foods in such large quantities, and everybody's hyper focuses on, I need more calcium. Well, how about the magnesium? That's a macro mineral too. And this is a great carrier for magnesium into the cell.
The best measure of stress is to measure your urinary 24-hour magnesium, and a 2-to-1 ratio of calcium and magnesium in your bones even. Narival is another amazing nutrient. We use this for people that have a hypoactive depression. We use it in multiple sclerosis to increase activity of the dopaminergic pathways for motor control. Narival, Norival. This is acetyltyrosine. Tell us a little bit about that, Jonathan. Again,
when we're talking about acetylation with amino acids, many people can't convert tyrosine. Tyrosine is a precursor, along with phenylalanine, to norepinephrine, which is a neurotransmitter involved in depression. So many of these things are psychoactive in their own way. You could use it as a precursor loading strategy. Some physicians use it as a diagnostic screening tool to see what kind of depression people have. You know, there's people who just can't get out of their pajamas, and then there's those who just feel sadness and helplessness. And those who are not overly sedated may not respond to one antidepressant that works on serotonin. This one works specifically on norepinephrine.
So the next one I'd like to talk about is Posonol, which is an adaptogenic mood elevator. Tell us a little about Posonol. This is really effective, along with some of our other nutraceuticals like Calm Mind, which is a very effective. Tell us about Posonol. Little tiny brown soft gels, very, very good at helping people adapt to stress and mood elevation.
Yeah, you know, a lot of what we do is how do you survive in the 21st century? Or are we in the 21st century? I don't even know at this point.
We are. We're too far into it, and that's why everybody is in a state of constant terror.
So the Posonol also has antidepressant qualities. You know, in countries around the world, they don't have access or the funds to go on antidepressants, and they look at things from the plant kingdom, animal kingdom, or botanical extracts that can have effects. And a lot of these come from ancient cultures, and this is one of them.
Yeah, it's very, very effective to reverse anxiety and depression. Another one of my favorites is Recidival for hair tonic to actually reverse baldness. And I use it every day. In fact, it's interesting that all of my brothers and even my oldest son are starting to get some balding. I have no problems at all. I'm 63. And it's Recidival that does it. And, of course, you invented this formula. And one of my most favorite is selenium and chromium cruciferate. These are cruciferous. The most bioavailable forms is chromium and selenium. Tell us a little bit about those.
Well, these were hydroponically grown mustard green plants that absorb selenium or chromium, depending on how the plants are grown, in specific troughs. And the plants express the minerals in a bioorganic way rather than just taking a straight sodium selenite or chromium chloride. You're getting an organic expression of the minerals in a cruciferous vegetable, which in the case of mustard greens is other cruciferous vegetables would include broccoli, cauliflower. In fact, they have used these plants to clean up toxic dumps, except, you know, we're not doing that. It just shows as a model on how they absorb minerals so well, and then we can identify the amount that we want to use in the specific plant.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on the program, Jonathan, explaining your remarkable discoveries and what I call some of the most important areas on functional nutraceutical. Back to the Nutrimedical report. I want to continue our discussion of some of the important nutraceuticals we're talking about with Jonathan. Next is seroflozyme, which is an enzyme from silkworm enzyme. We have the combination called Inflamix that contains not only the Wobenzyme N formula, 10 times stronger than the previous one originally developed years ago in Germany, 10 times stronger, but also with the seroflozyme silkworm enzyme. And so it breaks up inflammatory changes around joints, interfascial adhesions between different fascial planes, inflammation of tendons, ligaments, plantar fascia, for example, in the feet. Very, very effective. So that seroflozyme is just the straight silkworm enzyme. We have, of course, sphingolin, Sphingolin. Sphingolin is a special myelin basic protein. It's used for peripheral nerve healing, central nerve healing with multiple sclerosis, but also peripheral nerve. It helps the myelin sheath regenerate. We use that along with Neurogen, which is DHA or docosahexaenoic acid, and it's an algae-based formula. So it's very helpful along with Nutrifos for remyelination. So when we recommend remyelination for multiple sclerosis or for peripheral neuropathy, we may use Sphingolin, Neurogen, and Nutrifos, that trio. Next is Swedish flower pollen. It works very well along with Bladder Up. Bladder Up is very, very good. It's an extract of a pumpkin seed, the Bladder Up. to help stop bladder infections, but also to restore normal health to the bladder wall. The Swedish flower pollen is a natural alpha-1 blocker, so instead of the toxic drugs that are out there that can have CNS or eye effects, Swedish flower pollen actually will stop the bladder spasm. If you have a trigonitis, the lower triangular area of the bladder that's neurologically sensitive, in women it can cause, you can have a trigonitis due to, say, ureaplasma or E. coli or some other organism that's infecting the bladder wall. Or in men, you might have a prostatism that's pushing against the bladder wall that causes irritability and bladder spasms. And the Swedish flower pollen can stop that. One of my next favorite supplements is called Synaptin, a very tiny tablet. After you take Cognition Plus and Brain Power, if you need to add an additional boost to brain function, Synaptin, Synaptin, is amazing. Now, of course, our protocol for treating, it's called the DAN protocol for autism, to restore cholinergic pathways to the hippocampus areas of the brain that's out of balance, is to use a combination of ultrathiamine B1, which is a fat-soluble thiamine, the uridine 300 monophosphate, and cytidine choline, or CDP choline. That's CDP choline. So the combination will raise cholinergic levels in the acetylcholine levels in the hippocampus, parts of the brain, to restore normal brain function and memory. It's basically the card valve system for your brain. So it's very, very effective. Now the other one that we mentioned earlier is uridine, which is triacetyluridine, for restoring normal function of the brain as well. I'd like to mention some of the other remarkable nutraceuticals, some of the ones that I think are important for people to remember in terms of their function. Nutrifos, of course, is a phospholipid for regenerating any solid organ. And if you're remyelinating nerve fibers, you want to use Nutrifos, Neurogen, and the Sphingolin. If you're trying to build up metabolic activity to burn off calories, you want to be using our new sports energy drink, Sports Energy Lights. You can sip on it all day long. I usually recommend you mix that with a scoop or so of the Brain Mag, which is the magnesium L-threonate. And the green tea select is really powerful. One capsule equivalent to 10 pots of green tea for detoxification and boosting your metabolic rate. Superfolate is the most powerful activated folic acid you can get, and it's very important for activating the process to make neurotransmitters in your brain, but also for methylation to create digestive enzymes, for remyelinating your central and peripheral nerves, and for detoxification to create methylation. The way methylation works is you grab heavy metals with methylation, and the rate-limiting step is a conversion of folic acid through 5-methylfolate reductase, and we have the activated form. That works very well along with the power-methyl B12, SEM-ethyl, which is the S-adenosine methionine, and R-SEM-ethyl is the most powerful available on the planet. 77% SS isomer, optical isomer, with 600 milligrams of trimethylglycine. One of my favorites is lactose blocker. Lactose blocker we have on a special right now. It is the only neutral pH blocker of the lactose in milk or milk products that if you want to get rid of a dysbiosis in the gut, only 2% of the population has the enzymes to break down milk lactose. This allows you to actually have one that will work throughout the entire GI tract, whereas regular lactases you can buy in the grocery store or pharmacy only work in the stomach. They do not work in your lower bowel when the pH is changed, so they're not in the... This is the only neutral pH lactase enzyme available. So it'll stop gut spasms, dysbiosis, leaky gut syndrome, and colitis. Cell detox glutathione. I think this, and I was thinking, what will help to protect the brain? And well, Cognition Plus, Brain Power, and Cell Detox Glutathione are the start. Then remyelination would be Neurogen, Nutrifos, and Sphingolin. I'll make a cod liver liquid. This is not your grandmother's cod liver oil. This is an orange-flavored, pleasant tasting, containing all of the fat-soluble forms of vitamin A, D, E, and K, phospholipids for rebuilding all your solid organs, and for normalizing your lipid levels. It'll lower cholesterol more than all the HMG-CoA reductase drugs like Lipitor, Zocor, and Crestor, which are very toxic, those drugs actually should not be given to anybody, because they've now proven in women that that class of drug will actually induce diabetes in women for certain, and they're now completing studies that will do it in men as well. So there's lawsuits over it. Melatonin TR, melatonin time release, and I can tell you I love this nutraceutical. I take at least 2, sometimes 3 at night, and it gives you 1 milligram of immediate release melatonin and 4 milligrams of slow release, so you get a nice smooth release all night. It's the most powerful antioxidant you can take, is melatonin, to protect against cancer. There next is polyphenol and NutriDefense, which I designed, and in our NutriComplete, which we've now put on, taken off the primary list, but if you want to get any of our nutraceuticals, including NutriComplete, you just have to contact us. We only sell them by 6-packs now, and there's not 6-pack plus 1 free, it's just 6-packs. You will get free shipping when you order a 6-pack, but there are no 6-packs that was free or 30% off, because we're clearing that inventory. Flash Away and Hormone Synergy, these are aparental and arenogen that actually will stop hot flashes and also prevent conversion in your fatty tissues of your body from converting male hormone to female and female to male. Very important to stop not only low testosterone in males, but also hormonal imbalances that cause hot flashes in females. And then Xenoestrogen Detox. This is very important to removing xenotoxins. We use that along with our Semethyl and Life Support, which has all the phase 2 detox support. Then the other, of course, for free radical removal is Nutritrala, long-acting alpha-lipoic acid, the only long-acting ALA in the world. Recycles your fat and water-soluble antioxidants. And Regenerex, which is going to stimulate the genes to actually stimulate the body to protect itself from free radicals. So I get some remarkable, what I call complex consults, and I just want to go over some of these today, and some of the questions too. The first is someone asked about whether or not hyperbaric oxygen would help in terms of 1.3 atmospheres pressure. They said their chamber was operating 1.2. There's really now a significant difference. The pressure of 1.2 to 1.3 will not make a significant difference there. The next question, let's see. We have some questions. Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. And of course, we have a lot of, I said, amazingly varied questions that we have here at Nutrimedical. Interestingly, we have a lady who had very severe problems with maldigestion. And I recommended that she start a series of nutraceuticals to help clear her colon, to normalize her bowel activity, to normalize digestion, stop leaky gut syndrome. That protocol, of course, is pretty straightforward. It actually will fix the problem. Start off with colon cleanse, which will mobilize the lower bowel and clear it. Digestes, it normalizes stomach acid and pepsin production. Gastrozyme, the broadest spectrum neutral pH enzymes available to break everything down, including gluten. Lactose blocker should be taken before all milk-containing products if you have dysbiosis or gut spasm or irritable bowel syndrome. Living Probiotic, a capsule twice a day. And, of course, Gastro Heal, zinc carnosine to heal the gut wall. Chew 1 tablet and 2 tablets 4 times a day. Living Probiotic Ultra every 3rd day. And then, of course, to clear the pathogens, Allicin Med, a capsule twice a day. And Berberstatin, 2 capsules twice a day. And to normalize bowel motility, IBS Care, which is a slow-release form of carnitine that will normalize the bioenteric plexus of the bowel wall. So that's very effective. And it's remarkable how many medications some people receive. I had a consult from an elderly lady whose son who's referred her to me to go over her medication. She had a problem with atrial fibrillation, and she was on an amazing array of drugs. A toxic drug called amiodarone, amlodipine, which is a calcium channel blocker, which of course causes significant damage. You never want to be on amlodipine because it not only causes edema, but it also will cause in the long run, over 5 years, a significant drop in IQ and significant shrinking of the brain away from the internal calvarium of the skull. It will actually damage the ion channels, so it'll make you calcium ion blocker dependent, Whereas you really want to use something like gamma E plus that repairs the ion channels to keep calcium kicked out of the cell so it doesn't cause damage. It comes in like a spark and it's kicked out. Furosemide, if you do take furosemide, which can be safe, you have to take additional minerals, calcium, magnesium, and potassium, or you can get mineral deficiency. Hydralazine, which is a drug that's used as a vasodilator. Again, epresilene, you've got to watch that you don't develop what's called postural hypotension, where you can fall. And of course, similar things with metoprolol. It's a beta blocker. Beta blockers actually interfere with metabolism, but they can also cause fatigue, and they can cause problems with postural hypotension. If you get up quickly, you can fall. And they also give Prilosec, which is omeprazole. When you take these things like a proton pump inhibitor like omeprazole, you actually can induce maldigestion of minerals, so it's absorbed in the second part of the duodenum, just below the stomach. So you can end up with demineralization. Ranitidine, this is another Zantac. I don't know why you take both of them. That's pretty crazy. And Xarelto, this is a rivaroxaban band, and that is a drug which is being sued like crazy in Texas and in other states now because it causes, in some individuals, massive bleeding. It's quite dangerous. So no one should be on Xarelto. That's Xerelto. And also similar to that is Eliquis. These drugs, depending on the DNA polymorphisms of the individual, can have massive and life-threatening bleeding caused by it. Sometimes one of the safe drugs to use for atrial fibrillation is a ACE receptor blocker like Cozar. I don't ever recommend Tylenol for arthritis. Tylenol is just a substance P blocker, and it can actually cause liver damage and can cause kidney damage. A lot of people in the renal unit end up with permanent renal damage are actually Tylenol users. So, bad list of drugs. Natural substances available for most of them. If you're going to use any drugs for atrial fibrillation, you want a high dose magnesium, magnesium glycinate, malate, and magnesium taurate. You want forskolin, which is going to help normalize the arrhythmias. You want to use Cardiovasc, our new version of Cardovite, Cardiovasc. You want to use a gamma E+, Supernox to restore nitric oxide, Vascucare to restore the energy metabolism, and D-ribose, acetylcarnitine, CoQ10, and CoQ10 ubiquinol to normalize the metabolism and spasm. And if you optimize magnesium levels, especially with magnesium taurate and magnesium glycinate malate, you should be able to stop the cardiac arrhythmias and the atrial fibrillation. It's basically due to a total body, especially cardiac muscle, deficiency of magnesium that causes the irritability and the problem. So this approach works much better, and even if you're trying to do a cardio version with 50 joules of energy, it doesn't work unless you have optimized magnesium level in the heart muscle. So when the cardiologist tries it and it doesn't work, it's because the patient's not been properly prepped up. Remember, the primary problem is a metabolic problem of energy metabolism in the heart. And if the mineral content and the energy of the mitochondria, which make up 2/3 of the dry weight of the heart, are not working, it'll have almost no positive effect, or it'll be very temporary, where the heart will convert and then it'll go right back to its previous atrial fibrillation rhythm pattern. So that's a very major problem for the doctors that really don't understand the metabolism, what it is for heart disease, and unfortunately it's the majority. I got an interesting report from one of our gentlemen that listened the other day talking about the Oklahoma City, and of course I won't read the whole report, but basically he understood because he was there at the time of the Oklahoma City bombing, and he realized that he remembered my story about me being the exit examiner in Colorado Springs for all 5 special op forensic munitions specialists that came back from the Murrah building to Colorado Springs to be cleared toxicologically from after their assessment of the building, which was, by the way, destroyed with micronukes and high explosive cord, including RDX and C4 Pineapple and C4 explosives on the pillars of the building. It was not demolished by an ANFO bomb. And he mentioned that, this gentleman mentioned that every time he drove by the phony reflecting pool, gates in of time, field of empty chairs, survivor wall, and survivor's tree, he got nauseated to his stomach. That makes him to review his past feelings when he were under the gun with Bill Clinton as president and the elements of the federal government that were responsible for the bombing, all the lies misleading an American public into buying the idea that fertilizer inside a truck could do the horror that took the Murrah building down instead of micronukes that were used. He also remembered that the American people were at fault, and that for not coming and understanding and sharing their love and care and understanding what actually did happen there. And that's, of course, why 9/11 happened, because they didn't face the truth about Oklahoma City. And of course, now the Clintons are trying to steal America away again a second time, using the country as bring him into the pit by trying to get Hillary Clinton elected as president in 2016. The media giving her a pass, basically trying to make it become old news. And he mentioned that he was actually in Oklahoma City at the time, and he talks about the fact that he remembers the 2 explosions and remembers a lot of other things that were anomalies that no one in the current news wants to talk about. He also recalls 9/11 and the Twin Towers and the fact that the munitions used in the Murrah building were also foreshadowing of the use of micronukes in the World Trade Center tower demolition and use of high explosive cord, RDX, which is used in the outside joists of the building because it's supported from the central structure and the outside walls. And, people need to remember that because we have neither dealt with properly to the extent that we get the exact technical details of how the demolition occurred, the fact that the next level of terrorism that will be geometrically increased from Oklahoma City and from 9/11. We're coming back with Ryan and Nutrimeds in hour number 2. Hour 3, Tim Alexander, our geopolitical historian, and Chris Harris, our nuclear expert. And of course, tomorrow is Firing Line. So if you have questions on any health or wellness issue, do get them into Michelle. 888-212-8871 is our special orders line and questions, and you can email Michelle at going to Nutrimedical.com and going to contact us, and she'll take your email and see if it could be on air. But tomorrow I have a special. We're going to be bringing on Professor McCanny, a lot of important topics. I had managed to talk to him yesterday and today, getting prepped up for tomorrow's show. You don't want to miss that program in hour 3 tomorrow with Ann Morrison, our scientists. We'll soon have a new blog, and Professor James McCanny with his